Welcome to the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. The podcast that will connect you to resources regionally and nationwide to engage them in open, honest discussions so that we can inspire the growth that you need to chase the experience you want. So strap yourself in because here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. I'm Sean Smith, and on the line with us, the co-host, Sam Dunlap himself. How you doing, Sam?
We're doing well. It's the first visual recording that I've been a part of, so we'll see how this goes.
The first official one, anyways. We did a test run with the software before I dove into it, and it worked out pretty well. So we'll see how this goes. I did learn something though about this, and since we're talking about it, so this has like a automatic interface with Spotify, so it's pretty easy for me to upload both the video and the audio up to Spotify. So Spotify is my host site, and then that's where my RS feed pulls from, is Spotify. And so I assumed YouTube would have picked up the video too. No, Spotify only sends out the audio version only, so I have to go in and actually upload the video to YouTube. So anyways.
Yeah, why wouldn't you? Anything to make technology work for you work easier, right?
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably a reason behind that. And I will tell you this, Spotify is actually pretty cool to work with, because I was running into an issue and I did a live chat with them, and the guy, girl, whoever it was, kind of worked me through the problem, and we figured it out. And I don't pay them anything, and they're giving it help. So I don't want to give them too much of a plug, but it is what it is. Like it's easy to work with, and there's still a couple things I wish they would do, but they don't. But whatever.
Well, you're not paying them, and they're not paying you, so why not the shameless plug?
Right. Right. Man, it's been a while since we've been on the podcast together, and here we are in a video format. So what's been going on with Sam?
Yeah, man. Just a lot of work in summer, concrete and asphalt season. So we're hammering down on that at work. Outside of solving all the world's problems there, we're kind of in between looking at places, making a potential move. So that's been exciting, a little stressful.
Yeah. You, my fingers are crossed that you guys get the place you're at, that you guys just recently put an offer in on. We won't go into that, obviously, but I hope you guys get that, because that'd be a good fit for you guys.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We're excited about it. Maybe a little too optimistic about it.
You never know.
There are some hurdles to jump, but such is the way of life. If there aren't hurdles and you breeze through everything, then there's no fun in it, right?
Yeah. And I mean, listen, you got the challenges of what makes life worth living, I guess, sometimes.
Absolutely. And, since we've got out here, everything's kind of went pretty smooth. So if this is the one thing that doesn't go our way, I'm not going to be too sad about it.
Right. You guys have been thriving out there in the great bicentennial state of things, is what they call you. What they call you guys out there, as the bicentennials, or whatever it is. The centennials. I think it's a centennial state. I think that's what it's called. I don't know.
I don't pay attention to any of that stuff.
I don't know. You live out there, not me.
I do, but I still can't answer it for you. I just know it's not the Buckeye State.
Yeah, well, sometimes I wish this was the Buckeye State. I get tired of hearing about it all the
time. Probably especially this year.
I'm one of those, yeah, you know what, I still say, you know what, yeah, all right, so let's get out here. I'm a Michigan Wolverine fan. I have been since as long as I can remember. And I want to say something to the Buckeye fans out there. You guys aren't technically the national champions, because you didn't beat the national champions last year. You lost to Michigan in a down year for Michigan. You lost to them. They come back from the national championship. They were the reigning national champions. Yeah, you guys got the title, but you didn't beat them. Anyways, that's all I got to say on that. And I'm sure, hopefully, the AI picks that up and makes that one of the short clips for social media. Gain some attention.
That'd be really fun. But yeah, what an interesting year or couple years for college football, I guess, for Michigan to win and then Ohio State to win. But for some
Yeah.
reason, Ryan Day can't figure out the formula, the secret sauce to get past anybody at Michigan, apparently. It doesn't matter who's there. He just can't get past them.
Yeah, I don't, I would think eventually. All right, if you're a Buckeye, like, so if I was a Michigan fan, okay, I am a Michigan fan, right? I'm a Michigan fan, and like, even if Michigan wins the national championship and you keep losing to Ohio State, at a certain point, as a Michigan fan, I'm like, yeah, what are we doing? you know, and so I don't wonder if the Buckeye fans are the same way. Yeah, you're happy for the national championships, but at the same time, like of the sport rivalries that are out there, there's no, I don't think there's any that's bigger than Michigan Ohio State. Now, I think that they've kind of wandered a little bit because neither team hasn't really been uberly strong at the same time here recently. So you have one that's like totally takes it all for a while, and then the other team gets a little bit better and or just gets the edge and wins a few. It's not a really back and forth like I think a lot of people were used to. So I don't know. You can call it a rivalry anymore, other than the fact they just don't like each other.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of how the Browns and Steelers were getting there for a while. There wasn't a whole lot of competition in the room. Now they both suck, and
Now it's fun to watch again.
yeah, yeah. Now it's
You
hard,
never know
gritty
what's going to
football.
happen.
Neither team has much of a chance, and it's all violence.
No, all violence. Uh, yeah, some very proud moments between the Browns and the and the Steelers here in the past several years.
Oh, well,
But anyways, let's see. So you got a couple tags I seen. You drew a couple archery tags.
yes, sir. Decided to grab the bow back up again this year. Couldn't stay away. Pretty quiet year as far as folks coming out, so I've got some time to just focus and hone back in on shooting, get back on target, work out my kinks again. And then the wife drew two rifle tags, so we're gonna be
There you
busy,
go. There
especially
you
if
go.
we end up moving. We're gonna be really busy this year.
Yeah, no kidding. I don't know if that happens. Give me a call. Maybe we can swing out and give you guys a hand somehow. I don't know how, but maybe we can work something out. I don't know.
Yeah, no
That's
big deal. If you,
that's
no, you ask you to drive 22 hours, but if you want to, you can.
well,
We got
give us an excuse for us to come out. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, we got the trailer now, so that'll make things a little bit easier too.
yeah, and you guys don't have like a 20 kids, so you don't have a lot of stuff to pack up.
No, not 20 kids. We're not hoarders. If it doesn't get used for a year, it goes. So, uh, we like to live fairly minimal. We still have our fair share of stuff, but I
Yeah,
feel the majority of it's useful.
yeah. I mean, you're going to have that. And you're going to find, and when you move though, you find out how much stuff you actually have. You're like, where did all this come from?
Well, we had actually rented a storage unit and, thinking the garage was too full, we need to skimp down on some stuff for the pictures for
Mhm.
the realtor and things. And so we rented a storage unit and took a bunch of stuff over there. It's only an 8 by 10 and we start putting all this stuff that we think is so much stuff in there. It's like, oh, we really don't have that much. This isn't so bad.
To find out, we don't have as much as we thought we did. So,
No, when it's all in one place, it looks like a lot, and you start moving around. It's like, well, that wasn't so bad.
so how is the archery coming for you? You've been shooting a lot here recently, or when you can?
I haven't been shooting a lot. I've been shooting when I can, which still isn't a lot. But the last couple times I've been out, I've focused mostly just on the stationary targets and the archery bays, not going shooting 3D courses. That way I can, you know, get my knock point and everything reset and just settle back in and develop kind of a shot process for myself and just squeeze through instead of trigger punching.
Yeah, that's rough though. Sometimes that can be really rough.
Yeah.
And
Fortunately, the bays have been fairly quiet the last couple times I've been, so you can just settle in and take your time.
mhm,
I've only been going to 20 to 40 yards, so just keeping it short, keeping it close, building
yeah.
confidence back in
Mhm.
to where I needed to have it.
Chris B had a pretty good video out there, working with target, correcting target panic, and he does it on like the I don't know, get one of those morale high roller targets where it doesn't have to be like I guess what people call a spot target, because that's not like the Vegas spots. That's not what we're talking about. But it's more like something that's got dots on it, and he's like, just shoot close, like close, like 20 yards, like even closer than 20 yards, right? And then just find out where you have to aim or adjust your sight to where when you are aiming at it, the arrow will impact in the center of that dot, and then just work that for a while, and then move back a little bit more. And then once you get to a point that you're not hitting the dead center, stop there, maybe go back to that the next closest distance you shot, work that a little bit more, and then keep working your way back. And the hardest part about most of this, and you and I have talked about this before, obviously, and I've talked about it with several other people, but the hardest part about it is that a lot of people just want the instant fix. They think that they can just go out and fix something, and they can do it
Yeah,
overnight. Well, and
and they want
unfortunately,
the new gadget. The new gadget's gonna fix it. Oh, this
that
new, Garmin range finding sight's gonna be the game changer for all my woes.
no, it's not. And I've somebody said it best, is that all they are is just band-aids. Those are just band-aids, and eventually, like once you get used to it, all your old habits are going to come back. And it's just putting in the work to correct the issues and stuff. So my Ohio Sam, he's been doing that. So I collect Sams apparently. I've got a Colorado Sam and an Ohio Sam. So my Ohio Sam, he's been doing that, and he's actually been like he says it's helped him a lot. And
Good. The one thing for me that helped was shooting with, I think it was Marty, a couple years ago. I was having some trouble getting on where I wanted to be with my sight adjustment. Instead of circles, just vertical and horizontal lines, not in an X, not in a T. Start with one and then move to the other for your sight adjustment. And that seems to get rid of a lot of my target panic, or just shooting at lines opposed to finding the center on a dot.
yeah, I like that's how I sight my sights in. Is I'll start a little bit on like a vertical line, so the left to right's okay, especially as I start to back up, and then I start at 20 with my 20-yard pin, or if I'm working like my slider, so 20 yards, I adjust it up to where my 20 yards should be, and that's usually at the very top of the sight is where I usually run 20 yards at, and so then I'll use a really thin line, like I take orange duct tape. I love the orange for some reason. I see it better,
For sure.
and I won't use a full strip of it. I'll um I'll get enough long enough to where it will wrap around the target, where it'll cover the entire target face, and then I rip a very small, probably about maybe almost like a finger width, I'd say, of the tape, and then I'll tape that up there. So I'm really aiming at a really finite point at 20, because if I get, especially with a slider, you have to make sure your 20 is spot on perfect, or all your others are going to be off. So, and that's what I do. Then I'll do that, and then I'll go back to, and then when I'm doing a slider, I want to work myself back to 80 yards. And then I'll use a little bit bigger strip, like almost a full strip of duct tape at 80, to make sure I keep hitting, so I can first see it. And secondly, as long as I'm hitting at 80 yards, if I'm hitting that tape consistently, that's sighted in enough. Like, I don't know, some people just think that they need to be dead center and all that the entire time. It's like, listen, it's 80 yards. And that's, if you hit the inside of a, 2 or 3 inch freaking line of duct tape consistently at 80 yards, you're doing pretty freaking good. I think you can calm down.
Yeah, that's a poke.
So, and that's usually how I find my tapes and stuff. How I get my slider slided in. And then, of course, the individual pens, I do that, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, or however many pens you're running. But I do the same thing
Right.
with progressively bigger pieces of tape. And then once I get that, I usually try to work on that left to right. But what that does, if you do a horizontal line, horizontal for all your for like your elevation or your yardage, that takes out trying to aim at a finite point. You have the entire strip of tape to aim at. So it doesn't matter if it goes a little left, a little right. That don't matter. As long as it hits a target and it hits that tape, we're good. And then the same thing with the vertical line when you try to do left to right. I don't really care where it hits on that vertical line. I just need to hit that vertical line.
Yeah.
So it doesn't
Once
matter
you
if it's
work one out, once you
uh-huh.
work one out, you can start to work the other out as you progress through the steps. So, um, just it's one of those things that seem very basic for me, and kind of getting back to bare bones,
Mhm.
get back
Yeah.
into a good ritual, good practice of getting better at form and
Yeah.
opposed to, I don't know. I don't like circles. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, so I think not maybe not you, and this isn't like you specifically, but I think a lot of people have problem with them because they try to hold the pin on that exact point, and they get nervous when they see the pin start to kind of float away from it, and so they think they got to hammer it as soon as it's on there, and instead of just trusting the float and just trusting the process that it will come back there. I mean, you could also try to weigh your bow down a little bit through stabilizers if you want to get down that route, but um a lot of it is just trusting the float and that it's going to come back. Like it's going to come back to the center. Just trust it and then just execute your shot. And I think most people would, if they would just trust themselves a little bit, they would realize on if they focused on a perfect break or a clean shot, how accurate that is. Like versus trying to hold on the exact point. I know there's different strokes for different folks, and I get that, I think that's where a lot of the panic comes in, is that
Yeah,
it's just trying to hold in that spot, and then as soon as it's there, let it fly.
yeah. No, 100%. I remember, how old was I? 14, 15 years old, give or take, and, maybe 13. A good family friend of ours was teaching me how to shoot. That's what it was letting the pin float, hover it, and, hit time the release point, not punch through it. Don't force the shot. And that's one thing I kind of fell out of, got away from, stubborn, older, whatever, combination of the two, and just wanting to get the shot done, because it's like, ugh. But if, oh, practice makes perfect. Well, no, no, it doesn't. Not if you're practicing wrong.
Right. And yeah, that's true. Well, enjoy your young eyes while you can. I'm 42, and Judas Priest, am I having some issues right now? Um, my biggest thing is going back and forth between the pin and the target. I can't. It blurs. I'm having a hard
Yeah.
time. I'm like, oh no, it's
Well,
starting to.
that was one of the issues last year that kind of pushed me out of it a little bit, was like having that focal point issue, was
Mhm.
trying to zone in on one or the other, and it doesn't do it like it used to. I don't know.
No.
Having contacts in this dry climate, I don't like shooting in my glasses. It's not for me. The contacts don't really dry out, but I do notice some focal point issues on
Mhm.
adjustment from near to far.
Yeah, I think it's just coming with old age. It's finally caught up with me, and I don't appreciate it. I don't. I got an eye doctor appointment coming up here pretty soon, so I noticed it last year. Like it was starting. Like I started to notice it, but it wasn't bad. This year, it's like really bad, and I've gotten so now I used to be able to shoot like both eyes open, completely open. Now I gotta like kind of squint my left eye where it's
Mhm.
still open, but it's because I think what was happening, and maybe new glasses will correct it. I don't. I'm not an eye doctor, but I think what was happening is that there might be enough discrepancy in my right eye between with my current prescription that it's allowing my left eye to overtake it. And because I am right eye dominant, but you'll notice that if something's blocking something, that other eye is going to take the dominancy or kind of take over that whole focal um point or whatever, that whole attention you want to call it, whatever. We'll kind of take it over and divert more resource toward it. And I think that's what I've been experiencing. So I don't know if my right eye has just gotten a little bit worse over the last year or so, and I need to up the prescription. I don't know,
Yeah. Yeah,
or
and
if it's
that
just
could
that
be,
I'm getting older.
if you wear contacts and stuff, you could pop your right contact out and you can immediately tell your left eye trying to take over.
Mhm.
Same with your right. And I'm almost wondering, that's been one of my things with having trouble with focus, is maybe trying to use both eyes. I've tried it in the past and it didn't work super well for me.
Mhm.
But I'm wondering if, maybe I go to the range and next time I give it a try and see if it changes anything.
Yeah, actually, once I started shooting both eyes open, there when my vision was working for me, like it is like lights out, because that really got me to the point to where I would just focus on the target where I want the arrow to go. Well, eventually, you would get to your anchor, and then you make sure your pin is over the point that you're trying to hit, and then my focus shifts from the pin to the target, and I just kind of like just let that little blurry image of that pin kind of float in there, and I just pull through the shot, and like Like the last doe that I shot last year, that's exactly what I did. And the arrow hit right exactly where right exactly where I was looking, like the exact spot. And like I said, I was more focused on that point on the doe than I was the pin itself. And it's just it's scary how accurate that can be. So
Good. I kind of have a curveball question for you. I've been seeing some stuff lately, and it's been a while since this has been brought up. But the CJ Alexander stuff, I've been seeing a couple of the wildlife officers are finally out and able to do some interviews on podcasts. If you had a chance to check any of those out or speak with anyone that you know in the DNR about
no,
some of that.
no, I haven't seen any. Really do need to get on there because I want to listen to that. And the last time I had talked to anybody from ODNR was we really didn't get into that. We were just talking about deer hunting in general, and we didn't really mention that. So yeah, that is something it's on my list of things I need to listen to a few of those podcasts. The cell phone killed him. Like it is what it was. Like the cell phone gave him away. And it was odd when he was on the Hunter podcast and he said he didn't have his cell phone with him. I'm like, you're full of shit, dude. Like I hate to say that, but there's nobody. I don't leave my house without my cell phone. If I do, I come back and get it, especially if I'm out hunting. Um, because I get bored.
Well, and it's almost an essential tool anymore too when
Right.
you're, you got a good hit and you're tracking, but you're losing blood.
Yeah.
Uh, it it is. It's
Mhm.
become almost a crutch. Not maybe for some more than others, but I mean, I've definitely utilized the crap out of it living out here. So,
Well,
but for him
it's
to
not.
be on a podcast touting that, and saying he didn't poach the deer, and I'm sure the wildlife officers heard that and were sitting back going, "Oh no, you had your phone, dipshit."
Well, if you ever read or so, if you search it, you can find the actual transcript they use for I don't know for the indictment. I think it was for the indictment, and they pull like specific texts that he was sending, and they were and we're at GPS and we're pinged on the cell phone to get the GPS location. Just some of the stuff that he talked about. And like he basically admitted to all of it in his text. And they got him on a few other poached deer too through his text messages. And so I understand there's gonna be some people that's gonna have some issues with the ODNR getting a warrant to get into your text and stuff. But at the end of the day, like they had probable cause to get in there with a search warrant and get that information. And you know, honestly, I think he got off light for what he did. Um, and he definitely could have got a lot worse than that because that was all felony level stuff. So I mean, he got off pretty light for what it was.
Yeah, well, and the only people who are going to be mad about it are the ones that are probably doing nefarious things to begin with. Go ahead, get into my phone. You'll see where I was when I told you I was there.
Right,
You know,
right.
don't poach deer. Don't poach trophy class deer. Don't poach doe.
Don't
Just don't
don't
poach. Don't poach.
don't poach. Don't poach. Now I understand, like, listen, we all know mistakes happen, right? Yeah, maybe, some little well, we'll look at the hunting public. Let's look at them for a minute. They got in trouble, they got a ticket down, I think, Alabama. I don't want to talk a lot about this because I don't know the exact like case of this, but I'm pretty sure they got in trouble and got a ticket down in like I think it was the Alabama, it was a southern state. And because they were filming and they give the ticket to the person filming because by their law they say you have to have a hunting license even if you're filming somebody hunting. I'm like, that doesn't make any. Alabama, I'm sorry, you're from Alabama, I'm sorry, that's the dumbest freaking law I've ever heard in my life. Like they're not hunting, that person's not hunting, like they're filming, there's a difference. Whatever.
I could see some of it of where they're potentially coming from. Oh, well, here's a second one. Maybe we just turn the camera off and you shoot it. Maybe just nip some of it in the bud and everybody's got a hunting license and we're all legal. That's the only devil's advocate I think I could play for that. Are you allowed to tag along on your buddy's hunt without a camera and sit there and watch him without a license? You're not hunting.
Yeah, I don't know. There, that one that doesn't sit right with me. And I mean, they my understanding, the hunting public got ahead of it, and they were pretty straightforward with it, and they're very like professional about it. And kudos to them for that. I don't know if I'd been that professional. I probably would have had a few words to say about that. Um, because I don't have a problem telling you if I think something's stupid. I just did. Like that's one of the dumbest freaking laws I've ever seen in my life. And we're going to be talking about some dumb laws and dumb stuff here in this podcast, but we're getting there. But yeah, but so back to CJ Alexander real quick before we move on to the next ones. When my buddy who's up from Texas, him and his family was up and we were hunting, and that was about the time that this all stuff was all coming out and like the indictment and stuff would come out. And I
Mm.
was kind of reading some of the points to him, and one of my favorite parts of that entire transcript was this conversation he was having with his fiance at the time, I think it was, and she was texting, like worried he was going to get caught. And now this isn't verbatim what he said, but this is pretty close. And so she's like texting him, saying, "Hey, I'm worried you're going to get caught," blah blah blah. And he responded back, "Don't worry, I'm wearing camo and I'm pretty sneaky."
Jeez, Al. Oh man.
So that was kind of a running joke with us that week. Not that we were doing anything wrong, but there was like if somebody mentioned something stupid, we're like, "Oh, don't worry, I'm wearing camo. I'm pretty sneaky. We'll get away
I
with
think
it."
I think I'm gonna start using that one at work when the boss asks if I've called in locates.
So yeah, that was like my favorite line from that entire transcript. I'm like, "You dumbass." And what
I knew
we said in the podcast before, I'm like, you know what? If he's innocent, like I hope if you're innocent, I hope you won. But the facts. I think we knew then too that it wasn't going to go that way. But at the same time, like, hey, it is what it is. At this point, we don't know everything, so let's hear what it is. And then the transcripts come out. I'm like, it's like, yeah,
yeah.
you dumbass.
And then I mean, to come out almost immediately and start doing press and everything and just throwing it in DNR's face
Mhm,
like you were better than them, you were smarter than them. Like you're not. You know,
mhm,
they've got technology, they've got things, they're gonna get you. It might
mhm,
take longer than you think, but they're gonna get you.
mhm.
So just quit being silly.
Yeah, and the fact that he's like, "Oh, no, I've never really seen this deer before," or "No one's really talked about this deer." I'm like, "You're full of shit, dude. You're so full of crap." Because I've got a decent deer, nowhere near what that deer was, but I've got a decent deer that I've got photos of. That there's at least 4 or 5 of us in that area that know about that deer, and all 4 or 5 of us are hopefully going to be the one to put an arrow through him. But no, people know about stuff like that. You cannot get away with stuff like that because people know, especially a deer that unique. Is
Yeah. Well, the neighbors probably know about it, but potentially they're not saying anything to you because they're hoping that you don't. And that's the only way
right.
nobody said anything, is like, we've got this deer, we hope it's staying here, but it's probably not. All the broke up parcels, every other property within 5 square miles has seen the damn thing.
Yeah, at some point they've seen that deer, or as he got older, maybe his core area got a little bit smaller. Because I tell you, the one that we got now, granted, he's showing up on like 3 or 4, like 3 different properties that I'm aware of, and so he's not traveling a whole lot, but he doesn't have to though. Like he's got everything he needs in that small little area, and even the areas that he is traveling in is very limited in those 3 properties. So I'm looking forward to this season. I really am. I'm hoping that early on we can get that done and over with.
Yeah, yeah. You kind of had a rough time this past year. It was all
Eh,
dough, and I wouldn't say terrible, but
no,
nothing that you were overly excited to take as far as deer with antlers.
yeah, it's. I mean, I don't want it to sound bad to people because what I preach, what we preach is obviously chasing your experience and stuff. So yeah, there was probably a couple of deer that I passed up that others probably wouldn't have, and or there's just times that I just got busted by them. I didn't mean to pass them up, but it's just how it happened. But at the end of the day, though, like I wouldn't say. I mean, I wouldn't say it was overly like buck hunting. Yes, was a little rough on me last year. I had opportunities that just didn't work out. But just deer season in general, it was a lot of fun last year. I got 4 doe on my own. My son shot a doe. So I mean, we had a pretty good season last year altogether. I mean, good experiences, and I hate to say this, but I got sick around New Year's Eve last year, and the weirdest thing I've ever had in my life. But that's I started getting photos, like my camera up there where that buck had been showing up hadn't been working right. So as soon as I started feeling better, I went up there and grabbed that camera. And on the card, although it never sent to me, it was cellular wise, but on the card, there's photos of him being around there about that time frame that I was sick, and I'd have been out there hunting, and he was daylighting too. And that was a problem with him. Like he's the type of deer you just gotta be at the right place at the right time. He's hard to pattern. He really is. So, but that's not why we're here today. We got a few things to talk about. We got a few current events to talk about. So,
Unfortunately,
um,
out here saving the world again.
right. Well, I think the vast majority of this is going to be what's going on with the wolves there in Colorado. But before we get into that very large topic, this is probably going to take up this entire podcast, what's left of it. Um, let's talk about Tennessee there for a minute. And back in, I don't know, they're towards the middle of May, they're towards the end of May. Uh, there was a there was a news release that went out about the Division of Wildlife for Tennessee. I don't remember exactly what they're called. I don't know if they're called like the Tennessee Wildlife and something service
Resource agency. Um,
resource
I'm
agency.
yeah, I'm trying to play producer since you refused to get one. So no, I just pulled it up that way. Because it's been a minute. It's been a minute since
Yeah,
we
when
saw
did
this.
when did this happen? I know it was May, wasn't it?
See, I've got 3 weeks ago, so yeah, it would have been about the middle of May
Middle of May.
towards yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing is mostly from 3 weeks ago. May 21st from one news article. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, from a
So
few of them in the air.
I just want to so what I seen was this image, and I'm going to explain this image, and this is what I seen was a resource or conservation officer or somebody or biologist from the Tennessee Division of Wildlife, whatever we call them, right? I know you told me, but I'm just going to call them that because it's easier for me to say that. Was releasing 3 black bear cubs into the wild, and they were pretty small, like small, like bear cubs, and to the
Born that
point.
spring.
Uh-huh. Yeah, but yeah, born that winter, and he came out with mom that spring
Yeah,
probably.
yeah, yeah.
And they were young and released them because they were orphaned out into the wild by themselves. By no and I'm sitting there, I'm like, any and I know it's gonna sound bad, and I'm sorry, but any idiot knows that those 3 cubs have like a snowball's chance in hell of surviving. Um So I dug a little bit deeper into it, mostly because of what we're about to talk about. And I come to find out that mom had been struck and killed by a car on a highway there in Tennessee. And so they grabbed so first off, I guess, thank you for getting him out of that location and at least trying to find some remote location to put them. Um, but I think the first question that anybody would have is why didn't you there's got to be a wildlife refuge down there. There's got to be a wildlife sanctuary, or not necessarily a sanctuary, but some type of rehab center down there. And come to find out there is. But, but, did you ever see what was going on with it and why they didn't go there?
Not 100%. I read an overview that they had some sanitation issues and a bunch of bears that they had in their care had to be euthanized for
Yeah.
some outbreak, and I can't remember what the outbreak is because I don't have that in front of me. But I know there was a disease outbreak of the sort, and so they had been shut down to clean up their act, and then they could start
Mhm.
potentially um, rescuing bears again.
Yes, that is true. I guess they had one bear that actually died from the illness, and it was pneumonia is what it was. And they had 15 they had to euthanize. It had they, they didn't get to the one in time before it died, and then the other 15 they euthanized. And so they were waiting for Tennessee Division of Wildlife is what I'm gonna call them, to come in and to approve them again. Because in the article that I read that explained exactly what I'm talking about, they had said like, listen, we've already went through the steps of sanitation and cleaning and whatever else things they had to do. They were just waiting for approval from Tennessee to be able to start operating again, I guess is what they claim in the article. And but so that's why the three bear cubs did end up at the, I think it's like the Appalachian Bear Rescue, I think is what it's called, or something like that. ABR, Appalachian Bear Rescue. And so they according to the biologist, when they were looking at the deer when they're looking at mom, it looked like she had already stopped lactating, which they believe that what told them that, or what led them to believe that the bear cubs have already been weaned off of milk and were eating solids. And they were pretty confident they were eating solids, which helps their survival a little bit. But still, man, they're young. They said they're eating solid foods, they can climb trees. So, okay.
And that might be enough. One of the three might make it. The other three might make it. None of them might make it. It's a gamble. But yeah, that rescue was shut down for that pneumonia exposure, like you said. 13 bear cubs had to be euthanized. So I guess maybe their survival rate's better out there than getting bear cub pneumonia in
Yeah.
some facility. So it's a gamble either way. You want to interfere, but had human presence been lower, um, and mom died from some other cause opposed to a car, then you still got the three bear cubs. They're gonna have to figure it out anyway.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. Nobody likes it. Nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to see it. But the world's a cruel place sometimes. You got to figure it
Yeah.
out. Most bear cubs, they don't separate from mom until after 18 months old. But the only thing that they're not going to know is really how to hunt. I would fathom to guess that foraging is pretty instinctual through bear population. Being omnivorous and everything. So they don't necessarily have to hunt, but they can dig up moth dens or moth larvae and, you know,
Yeah.
forage on other things as well. Roadkill's pretty common. I mean, they could go back and eat mom.
I'm pretty sure they probably clean mom off the highway, but
Yeah, they're usually pretty quick about that stuff.
yeah, and and I think you made a key point there. And yeah, I'll be honest, I was not happy when I seen that when that first, like, my first initial like response to that was not good. I was not happy about that at all. And then after you get a chance, kind of sit and think about it, like, even like you said, eh, if this would have happened somewhere like in the middle of the woods, mom was killed by a boar, trying to protect the cubs or whatever. Mom was fatally injured, or something happened to mom got sick, she died. The cubs would have been left on their own and no one would have known the difference. The only reason that we know now is just the circumstance of it. So I mean, at least they got a little bit better of a chance, because of a little bit of intervention. But I don't know. There's just a small part of me that wishes that there had been another sanctuary that had been available. There had to be something somewhere down there that had been available to at least temporarily house those bear cubs. But
Maybe,
they've
but for a society that likes to scream, "Oh, humans need to stay out of nature," we sure like to stick our little paws in it and make sure, you know, if we want it to go our way, we get our
right,
hands in there.
right.
And it's just one of those things. Everybody wants to let nature run its course. Taking them to a sanctuary isn't that. So pick a side.
Yeah, you know, that's why, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, that's why I probably could be a wildlife photographer, because there'd be certain things that I just couldn't, like, I don't know if I'd be able to keep myself out of it and just let nature do what nature does. Like, I don't know, it's just me. Um, so, but I hunt, but just because I hunt doesn't mean I hate animals. Like, I actually like
And
animals.
then, Yeah, I could see the other argument too. Those bear cubs wouldn't have been in that situation had someone not run their mom over. True,
True.
but they could be in that situation because mom could be laying there dead from anything and everything.
One of
I don't know
other
how.
million things that kill bear, they will kill bear, throughout the year. Mom could have fallen out of a tree climbing up to try to grab food, or mom could have, drowned, or mom could have, fallen off of a cliffside that let loose or something. Like it
Yeah,
there's
tree, tree falls in a forest, lands on a bear. You see deer, you see elk, you see it happens.
there's a thousand and
Anything can
one,
happen.
or mom get her head stuck in a tree trying to get honey out, find a beehive trying to get. Or, another thing that I guess could probably get them is that it ends up dying because of some type of laceration to the guts because they ate a game camera. Because I guess there must be, I don't know, it's the formaldehyde or something that's in a game camera that they're attracted to, and they chew the crap out of them because they think it's like a beehive or something.
Well, I have yet to have that happen. I cannot attest to that. And I do keep my cameras in areas where I try to get as many pictures of bears each year as I can. So I
I
don't
know
know if
I've
it's
seen a
newer
few.
cameras and I'm poor and I have old cameras. But I do know that cow elk like to chew on the straps of my cameras. I haven't had so much had a bear take issue with it yet.
Oh,
So
oh goodness. I guess at the end of the day, like, yeah, I was a little frustrated with the Division of Wildlife down there. But the funny thing is, when that first came across my feed, they were said that was Ohio. I'm like, so I got a hold of I sent that to my Ohio, one of my Ohio contacts. I said, "Is this real?" He goes, that's new to me." And then so he got on there, started looking, and he's like, "No, actually, so the photo's real, but it's not us. It was Tennessee." And that's how I started digging down that road. So
yeah, well, I had seen it and I sent it. I immediately sent it to you. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way this is real. There's
yeah,
no way.
that's what it was. You did.
Um, Yeah, yeah. One of my buddies shared an article that said, "Oh, DNR releases 3 bear cubs into Ohio wilderness." Blah 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 blah. There's no way. There's
Yeah.
no stinking way. I think if bears wanted to be in Ohio, they'd probably already be there. They're in West
Oh
Virginia.
yeah.
And
There are there are
I would
predators.
argue traveling bears, not so much have taken up residency yet. I know my wife growing up along the Ohio River in Marietta, her grandma had bears in her backyard from time to time, but typically swam the river and probably went back because I never saw any in my time hanging out there.
Right. Yeah, but I think if I remember the post correctly, like even like on face value, if you had anything to do with the wildlife, if you knew anything about wildlife and how ODNR works or how any of them work, they said they released the 3 cubs for a reintroduction program. Bullshit. Like, no, that's not how that works. Like, even if you get involved in a reintroduction program, like if they release those cubs, it's because that mom was right in front of them, or they're about to release mom too. Like, they're not going to release the 3 cubs by themselves in a reintroduction program. That's worse than the Colorado wolf reintroduction program there, which
But the one thing I was gonna add about wildlife agency reintroducing, they're probably not gonna introduce mom and cubs. They're gonna probably release adults, sub-adults, give or take, and so they can start breeding populations. If you introduce mom and cubs, what are they gonna breed with? And breeding's not healthy for a growing population.
no, well, it's not. And also, you probably don't want to put the stress on mom with the cubs. And number one, I don't know if I want to deal with mom with cubs to even try to relocate them with that, because they can be a bit feisty when they've got cubs. So, but yeah, I mean that's really all we had to say about that.
Yeah,
And like
yeah.
I said, when that first came up, when you first sent that to me, now since you told me, I was like, that's how I came across it. Sam sent it to me. Like, when I first read that, I'm like, that can't be real. Like, I could see maybe like if they caught the cubs somewhere and then like relocated them, but not because of reintroduction program. That's the dumbest thing. So once again, people, make sure you like verify the stuff you're seeing on social media, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all of it. You got to verify this stuff because it is so easy for someone to go in there and come up with some clickbait title and mislead you. Like, it's been happening more than you think, a lot
Yeah.
more.
Just like this podcast, it's all been brought to you by AI, and we are figments of your imagination.
Yeah. We don't really exist.
This is
I'm
part of
actually
the matrix, and you're just living in it.
speaking of being misled, are you ready to get down? Are you ready to go down that terrible path that's probably going to take up a good bit of our time?
Yeah, I'll try to be, as quick as we can about it. It's a topic that's been a topic on here multiple times when we've
Mm-hmm.
had our chats. It's probably not anytime soon going to quit being a topic, and it's the wolf reintroduction in Colorado. It's going. I wouldn't say it's going well, but I wouldn't say it's a complete disaster. You know, as we were talking before the podcast, some of the numbers I was getting earlier was about a 62% survival rate so far out of 25 wolves that have been introduced in the last couple years here now.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. You know, we, again, that human intervention thing. Oh, well, they shouldn't have been off the landscape to begin with, and now we're trying to bring them back to the landscape. And you people need to quit interfering while we interfere.
Mm-hmm.
We're back to that cycle again. Um, but so far, I believe it's 8 of the introduced wolves have now perished. One at the hands of CPW through depredation from the Copper Creek pack that they relocated to Pitkin County. If
It
anyone
caused the
knows anything
depredation.
about Pitkin County, it's the Aspen area more predominantly that people would recognize that county's name.
Okay. Well, they relocated that pack because of depredation, though, didn't they?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And that pack had been brought here from Oregon, who had depredation issues to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, can't teach an old dog new tricks, and if there's an easy meal to get, they're gonna get it. I'm not blaming the wolves at all. That's what they did. That's what they've been doing, and that's how they were kind of taking care of their own. I blame the people who voted for this. So far, from what I've also read, 2 of the wolves are still under investigation how they died.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we'll see. I don't know. One of them was shot in Wyoming by a hunter, legally
Yeah.
taken.
Legally
Cannot
take
get
because
mad about it.
Wyoming
Wolves,
has wolf season.
yeah, and wolves don't know state boundaries. You bring a stressed animal in, it's going to try to get back where it came from. They have, it's they might even one of them might. Who knows? You never know.
Well,
Um,
how many have taken off already? Like they've had a few that's just like gone. Like, see ya.
um,
Uh,
I
they
I
had
can't test that any have left the state aside from the one that ended up in Wyoming that got shot. We
yeah.
had one that was roaming Colorado pretty quickly. She covered something like 12 to 1,500 miles or so since she had been dropped and pretty well ran herself ragged. And my guess would be that's been the most recent wolf that was found dead in northwest Colorado, but I can't say for sure because I can't keep track of all the damn caller numbers that they keep popping up in some of these emails.
Yeah, but I think you've had two that ended up in Wyoming. If I remember reading correctly. I know the one that was shot and then another one I think they found over there.
Oh, yeah. I think it was shot too by the USDA services, if I'm recalling now you say that.
Right, for depredation.
Yeah, yes. Let
So
me go to the handy dandy device here while you
while
continue.
you're while you're talking about that, so all right, so let's talk about I'm gonna touch on this briefly. Colorado Parks and Wildlife had to shoot and kill one of the wolves. It was from the Copper Creek. It was now what I'm reading is that it was one of the young males from that litter, from one of the litters that they had. They had to shoot and kill him because he was, preying on livestock. And so it's a depredation thing. And then now all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, why can't you do less, non-lethal capture techniques and relocate? They've already did that with that pack once already. Like that's not the first time that pack's been relocated. Like, and he is a member of that pack or was a member of that pack. So it was not the first time that they've been captured. And I know you're probably going to touch on this. The actual alpha male of that group died during the relocation after they captured him, because he'd been out running around hunting, depredation, hunting to keep up with the needs of the pack. And when they captured all of them, and I think you mentioned to me, and I'll let you touch on it here in a minute, but you mentioned they got all of them except for maybe like one of the pups. They just couldn't. He was just a rascally little feller, wasn't having it. And but during the captivity time, that male died during a less lethal or non-lethal capture. And I know at some point I'm going to go off the rails, and I think people need to hear it. And you can hate me, you can write whatever nasty stuff you want to say about me or whatever in the comments. I really don't care, because I think there's 51% of you in Colorado that need to hear this. Well, 49% of you actually had your freaking heads on right, and knew what was right and what was wrong. And it's unfortunate that we had to make a decision based upon just a small majority of freaking people. Um, it's ridiculous. But I'll get into that more as we get to that point. Now, I will say this: I know a lot of the British Columbia, what they're getting from British Columbia, they were up for being called anyways. So the British Columbia, now hear this, people. British Columbia has so many, they're going to go kill them. And so now we're pulling them from British Columbia to bring them down here. If that's not, if that is not a wake up call to any of you out there, we're taking them from a place that's getting ready to kill them because there are too many of them. What do you think is going to happen in the next 100 years? Like, Ohio is the same way with deer. Like, we're not talking about going on major call programs. They happen. We are doing it, but back in the early 1900s, there was barely any deer here, if any. Like we probably had like zero deer, and then we started reintroduction programs, and now we're to the point now, 120 some years later, that we're actually, the state is killing them. What do you think is going to happen to the wolves? The exact same freaking thing is going
Oh,
to
and
happen.
and like the deer in Ohio, not only is the state killing them, it's big metro areas where they're having issues,
Mhm.
urban areas where you just can't feasibly hunt within the reason of safety, even with a bow. So yeah, they're culling deer. I worked at a landfill when I lived there, and we would get truckloads of deer from metropolitan areas in about once to twice a year.
Right. Well, and that's funny because it's the metropolitan areas that made up the majority of the 51% that voted for this. It's that they voted for that was on top of that. And that's the problem though with states, and how, and I don't want to say how we change voting and stuff, but it doesn't matter. You can go to any state that you want to, and it's that those large metropolitan areas that actually swing most of the votes. It's the same thing here in Ohio. 51% of the votes come from from an area like the three big C's: Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati. And there's a big misrepresentation for what the majority of the area of Ohio is, based upon just those three very, 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 very small pinpointed geographical areas.
And it's very
And
much the same for here. You have 7 million people in one centrated area of the state, and you have a
Mhm.
couple outlying counties that view things in a similar way, maybe not
Mhm.
as extreme. Um, but if you look at a voting map of Colorado, you can see where all those votes are coming from. And the
Mhm.
votes that came from that area for this wolf introduction, reintroduction, whatever you want to call it, um, came from that area. One of the stipulations that they had on this reintroduction, was they can't be released east of I-25. Well, the majority of the votes came from east of I-25. How do you get to have a say in that?
it's not logical, it's not sensible, and it's not fair.
It's not affecting your livelihood. It's affecting a lot of people over here in a
You know,
rapid way. And now, as we continue in with this experiment, the funding isn't there. The funding is not there. They are way ridiculously out of line and over budget for what they had initially thought. So one of the things I'm going to bring to the table is, all right, commission appointed by Polis. How about you guys start paying for it? because us the taxpayers are kind of over it already.
Yeah. Well, let's even talk numbers here real quick. I can't talk on the generally how much they originally had budgeted for this, but obviously they're well above it. But let's talk about another thing they're well above already, and that is their depredation funds. they have doubled. I think the depredation tag or have complaints have doubled, and that the payouts have already reaching or going to reach double of what the actual allocated funds for that was, because I think they had about $350,000 they typically pay out every year for depredation, and they've already doubled it. So,
Let's see. Colorado ranchers have submitted nearly $650,000 in claims for wolf depredation, exceeding the compensation fund by significant margin.
yeah, by
The state's
significant, they mean
compensation fund, which is capped at $350,000 annually. So we're already on pace to double that. I mean, we're almost there. So,
hello, everyone. This is Sean Smith of the Chasing Your Experience podcast. We interrupt this episode to let you in on some exciting news. If you're looking to upgrade your mock scrape game this year, then head over to scrapedoctor.com and fill your carts full of scrape magic, maybe a poison ivy or two, just a rope squared, or even just a rope. And then enter the code CountryFried10. That's Country Fried, spelled with a K, the number 10, and save yourself a little bit of money. And now, back to the pod.
we can get mad and we can scream at the sky. We can blame this person, that person. But, the people who voted for this, the blood's on your hands. And speaking of which, that's going to bring me to Initiative 13, brought forth by some folks in Colorado. And it's basically to end the introduction after December 31st, 2020, or by December 31st, 2026. If we get enough signatures on these ballots that are being pushed, we have a good chance of getting it turned into a proposition, in which then it'll change from I-13 to proposition, and number shall follow. So, it'll stop the waste of a lot of this taxpayer money. It'll hopefully end the farce that the state's trying to continuously push so far about how great this introduction is going to be, and what's here will be here, and we'll see how the numbers fluctuate from there.
Right. Before I go any further, folks, I want you to look me right in my eyes right now. I want you to look me in my eyes, and I'm going to tell you the God's honest truth. I love animals. I hunt. I get it, but I love animals. And on top of that, I love wolves. Like, I don't have anything against wolves. I don't have anything against predators. So the conversation I'm about to have is not because I absolutely despise them. I don't. I really don't. I do think that they are a vital part of the ecosystem. My problem with all this, though, is that you are bringing in apex predators from a different freaking country or different region, and then dropping them into a place that they don't know and think that it's going to be sunshine and rainbows. Like, it's not. You've ripped animals from an area that they know their territory, they know their area, and they're very territorial. You've ripped them from that and dropped them into the middle of God's land, and then you've got one who is just running around that has no idea where to go, what to do. You've had a couple that's already left state and ended up in Wyoming. And then now you're at a 60% survival rate. And everyone says, oh, Yellowstone. They are that's where we get a lot of our numbers from, is that we will need to be somewhere between 70 and 80 some percent survival rate. So in other words, your mortality rate can't go more than 25 to 30%. If it's over 30%, then there's a good chance that you're not going to have a successful successful introduction program. Let's stop there. You're at 60%, or right around almost a 40% mortality rate. Open your eyes. And of course, nobody is, because here's the problem with the left. The left is going to sit there, and it doesn't matter what facts you throw at them. They're just going to stand on that hill, and they will throw money at it and resources at it until they prove themselves right. That's the problem with the left and where the left stands right now. And I didn't want to get political on this, but here we go. But here's my problem with you. You guys voted for this stuff, and you wonder why these things are happening. And like Sam said earlier, the blood is on your guys' hands. You voted this in and without even understanding what this does or what this is going to be. And you didn't listen to the people who are paid to do their freaking job. And that's the biologists of the state. And you've already over budget and now you've doubled your funds. Where's this money coming from? Like, and then now you're trying to reduce non-resident tags because, oh, but where do you think most of your funding comes from? It comes from the sale of those tags. It doesn't come from you out there hiking the trails. Like there's nothing. It comes from from the tag sales. It comes from other things. Here in Ohio, we have a wildlife plate that you can buy that goes towards conservation. We have the tags the licenses everyone has to buy. That's where the money comes from. You're not Missouri, who has a sales tax that where majority of their funds come from, which that's a great model. I wish more people would come with that because they are raking in money left hand over fist. But before I divulge too much into this, I told you I was going to go off the rails on this, but it needs to be said. You had wolves in Colorado already. They're coming. Let them do it naturally because they will establish their territories. They will know where to find food. They're coming. They will come. And then let your state manage them the way they need to be managed and stay the hell out of it. I don't care what type of utopia you think you're creating out there. And I'm going to be very, very pointed towards a certain sect of people out there who think that people shouldn't hunt, period. You think that there's going to be some utopian thing out there because you're going to throw all these predators in the landscape and they're going to help to actually manage the populations of the wildlife. There comes a certain point though where you are probably right there, but there's going to come a certain point where it's going to be an excess and they're going to start taking your pets. They're going to start taking your livestock. And you guys only have 25 wolves in Colorado that we're aware of. There's more than that. And we know there is more than that, but they're already taking your livestock and they're already killing your pets. What do you think is going to happen when you get more in there? Like it's insane that your guys' heads are in that far in the cloud and you're so far disconnected because you have this dystopian idea in your head that it's all going to be perfect. Listen, there's people and we're spreading out into parts of the country that we probably shouldn't. And the more we encroach on these areas, the more that this happens, the more stuff like this is going to take place. And there's more reason why we need to manage more.
Well, and that's where I was gonna jump in. You know, you pointed out the Yellowstone thing. Yellowstone's a petri dish. It is a small sample platter of a basically sterile environment for wildlife to thrive because there is no real urban sprawl happening. We're in a world where the population is rapidly growing, urban sprawl is taking over. We're displacing wildlife at an unprecedented rate. So again, you're bringing these wildlife in, these wolves in, and it's not fair to them. It's not fair to the other species that have been here. You know, well, maybe stop. Blah, 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 blah. The human race is going to continue to populate. Wildlife are going to continue to populate. We're going to continue to have conflict. Quit putting stress on the wildlife because we are putting stress on the resource as a species. So just think about it logically, not emotionally. And I know a lot of these decisions come emotionally based. Sit down, do the research, talk to the experts, not your friends, not the people in the news. Talk to the experts. Listen to them. They know what they're talking about. Now, depending on, oh, I'm an expert because of this, or no, listen to the people with boots on the ground. You know, go talk to your field staff out there with the Parks and Wildlife Agency. See what they're
Yeah,
dealing with without the wolves, the bear conflicts that they're having, the struggle that they're having because of the rapid amount of tourism the state is seeing. And, you know, there's a general overlap between the smartest bears and the dumbest human beings, which is why we don't have a bear-proof trash can.
I've heard that before. That's kind of funny.
It's been one of my favorite things to think about lately, and it's true.
Yeah.
You know, you can make everything this proof or that proof, but there's always some dummy that can fuck it up.
Well, you know what? You said, and I'm gonna go back. I can't help this, but I'm gonna cycle back to this. When you sent me the last wolf thing that was shot and killed, my blood boiled. Not because the wolf was shot and killed. That's not why. My blood boiled is because people voted for this stuff to happen. that's why my blood boiled. Like, these wolves were perfectly okay where they were, and you had to bring them in to a location. And now what happened? They're getting shot and they're getting killed or something else. They're not making it. Like, stop.
Well,
Stop.
and one of the things you saw in the headlines and from, well, I wouldn't even say the headlines, in the comment sections more so, uh, were the people who voted for this saying all the hillbillies and all the rednecks are going to go out and shoot all the wolves, and it's going to be your fault, and it's just going to be proven that you guys are godless heathens, want everything dead. Um, Not the case so far. Um,
No,
thank you,
no.
thank you to the community and people stepping up. And you still see people in the comment section, "Oh, kill them all." It's like, stop, stop. It's not good for anyone. It's not good for anything. But so far, from what I've seen, is the community doing what they have to do to ensure we're not the target of these attacks.
Right. Well, I mean, let's be honest. Does that specific individual exist in our realm? Yes, right. You go to the extreme on either side, you're going to have that exist on both sides of the fence. Like, it doesn't matter. That's a very small minority of people who are like that, and it's not the majority of people. You would actually I think a lot of these people need to actually listen to a gentleman who has spent his entire life working with wildlife and promotion of wildlife, and that's Jack Hanna. And Jack Hanna himself is like, I love hunters. I don't do it myself, but I love hunters because they are some of the best, if not the best, conservationists to ever exist in America right now. It was a hunter that created and set aside the national parks and all the federal lands that you have. It was a hunter. His name was Teddy Roosevelt. And now you have people who are trying to take those away from you. Hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
funny, you go back and you look at how much the party lines have shifted, and we talk about the left, and we talk about this, and we talk about that. Which side was Teddy on back then?
I'm gonna let you answer that one because I'm drawing a blank right at the moment. I'm,
From memory, if I recall right, Teddy Roosevelt ran as a Democrat. Actually, before the Bull Moose Party, before all that nonsense, and
yeah,
everybody
I
was
think he
trying to
was.
oust him.
I think,
But
yeah, I think you're right on that one. I'm not gonna step in. I'm gonna stay on the side of that one because I don't know the answer to that. And
well,
show
I am
knows.
going to jump on the computer so I can prove myself wrong.
Check the
Anyway,
check the Googles, but
um, but it just goes to show how much the party lines have shifted. It's a shame. We've talked about it before too. You've got the right that loves hunting but hates public land, seemingly, and you've got the left that hates hunting and loves public land. Where's our middle person? If you're supposed to represent all of us and the majority of us fall in the middle, where are you? Oh, that I know where you are. You're smart enough. You're staying out of politics.
well, I will say this: there was some Republicans that stepped up and said no to the whole land grab that they were trying to push there in, like, I think the Nevada area, the most recent one. So there was some Republicans that came up and said, Nope, shut that down." Um, but I don't want to get too political. Like, this is unfortunately this was a political decision. That's why we're here talking about this.
So I
Because
was wrong. Teddy Roosevelt was, according to the internet, a Republican. I could have swore he was on the other side of it.
who knows? Um,
Well, there you
but
go.
But at the end of the day, though, like, it was a hunter that set aside these lands that everyone gets to enjoy, you know. So I was just trying to make the point about what Jack Hanna was saying, and, like, if you want to talk about somebody who, trust me, I'm pretty sure that man probably likes animals more than he does people, and
Who doesn't?
he's saying this, right. And he had appeared before because he has a lot to do here in Ohio. Like, he was very, very heavily affiliated with the Columbus Zoo before all of its issues that it was running into. But that's for another discussion. But when there was a guy who set a bunch of exotic animals loose down in Zanesville, and it was unfortunate, but the sheriff's office did what they had to do down there, and they end up shooting and killing all those animals, or at least the majority of them. I'll say that. I know for a fact it was a majority of them. I can't say all, but a majority. And Jack Hanna came in and said that they were doing the right thing. And, like, I'm like, listen, if this guy is coming in here and telling you this, like, this dude, I'm telling you, loves animals more than he does people. I get the sense of that. Like, and he's telling you you're doing the right thing, and he's telling you that he loves hunters. He doesn't do it, but he loves hunters, and because of what they provide and what they do and their beliefs of the conservation of animals. I'm sorry. I mean, yeah, that's just one example of many. And
And if anyone's a wildlife expert that I mean, regardless of his opinion, if he liked hunting or not, uh, that man's spent his life doing that. So, I would qualify him as a wildlife expert.
I mean, that's what he was. I
Now,
mean, that's what he did.
now, now, I do have my problem with zoos, but we won't get into that because that's a whole nother rabbit hole and just personal.
Yeah, but my point is that I guess I already made a point I was looking at, but I just get frustrated by the fact that you know we have to have these conversations, and I'm glad you gave the plug. I mean, I think another plug we could probably talk about is the Smart Wolf Policy, kind of an account that's on Instagram and stuff. That's kind of really bringing this up to the forefront and pushing it. And I'm sure there's a few other entities as well, but
So
that's the
the
one that's
folks
really
involved with smart wolf policies are the ones pushing I-13. And if you go, which you need to be a Colorado resident if you want to sign the petition. It is a
Mhm,
Colorado issue.
mhm.
And if you do live in Colorado, and there's a snowball's chance in hell that anyone from the state's listening to this, go volunteer. All you have to do is get on their website. You don't have to go do full blown events, but you can sign up for them to send you a 40 signature packet to collect to help try and get this issue pushed through and stop the madness. And I think a lot of people are having buyer's remorse that did vote for this. And it sucks for everyone to find out to watch it work out this way. The people who want it, the people who didn't want it. The people who wanted it are watching wolves die. The people who didn't want it are watching pretty much what we assumed happened was going to happen.
Right. And it's just a countless amount of money that's been thrown at it for no reason. Um, you know, eh, never mind. I think I've said enough.
Yeah. All it's gonna do, you can harp on it, you can harp on it, you can harp on it. But
Right.
you know, you can live and learn, and unfortunately, sometimes you gotta learn the hard way.
Well, that's most
And
people. You just,
and it's unfortunately at the expense of other things.
yeah. Well, the expense of the lives of wolves that were perfectly fine where they had come from, and just should have been left alone.
Well,
They're
and
coming.
that's the thing. We know about the 8 that have, you know, died, been killed, whichever. We've learned about those, but how many do we not know about in the capture process that didn't make it through and got stressed enough and may have been held at the facility before transport that didn't make it. So, again, unfortunate, but it is what it is, man. I hate that phrase. Feels like a cop out phrase. I mean, we're to that point now. It's here, it's happening. Not much you're going to do about it. That's why the initiatives come about to try and stop the madness. Let things level off and quit using wildlife at the expense of our game.
Right. Yeah. Text
Or
in you.
no, low power mode.
Gotcha.
Phone's dying. She's old and tired.
Old and tired. Well, I guess since you're dying, we'll go ahead and close this out here real shortly. But like, guys and gals, if you are listening to this, and I'm hoping that Smart Wolf Policy picks up on some of these clips I'm going to put on Instagram as this starts to, as this publishes, and because I'm definitely going to make sure they're keyed in on these. If you live in Colorado, and once again, like, I don't have anything against wolves. Like, I don't like I I think they are a vital part of whatever ecosystem that they're in, not what they've not been in for a long time, because none of these animals that are their prey animals have grown up with wolves, and so you're creating an over amount of like stress on prey animals and livestock and ranchers and domestic animals, domestic pets, because of an apex predator coming into a location that nobody has ever dealt with before in that area. So,
Well, in quite some time anyway.
in quite a long time. Now, when they naturally come in, and they're coming and they will be there, I promise you, you will end up with a healthy population of wolves before too long, because you're stuck in between a bunch of states that have them: Idaho, Wyoming, Oregon. Like you're not far from those states. They're coming, and they will be there, and they will establish. They don't need our help. And the only reason the majority of this is happening, and I can tell you right now, is that they wanted a natural balance, and it's the anti-hunters. I'm gonna throw that out there. It's the anti-hunters that are pushing this the most, because they believe that they can create a natural balance where man won't have anything to do with that. They won't have to be part of it. They can stay out of it because of the natural balance, and there will be no natural balance. Like the natural balance is not going to happen because we exist. That's how it
And
is.
there's no staying out of it. California banned their lion seasons, and they still take lions off the landscape every year.
They have
Except
to.
they do it at the expense of the taxpayers, opposed
Hmm.
to making money off of it and the meat going to
Hmm.
people for use.
Hmm.
But they define it as trophy hunting. I don't know if California does, but a lot of the anti-hunters want to call it trophy hunting. I don't know. There's only so
Yeah,
much you can say about it.
yeah, you know what? But here's the trophy hunting in itself. So I understand a lot of people have an issue with trophy hunting, and I think some hunters have an issue with trophy hunting as well. But here's what I want to say about trophy hunting. In reality, trophy hunting itself is not bad, because here's the thing: the trophy hunters are only looking for the mature animals of a species, right? They're not out. They're not looking to totally wipe out a species. They're looking for the most mature, the largest, the biggest, the baddest animal of that species, right? So actually, in a conservationist mind, they're actually doing a fairly good job of doing what they need to do, because they're giving that large mature animal time to actually procreate. So there's offspring from it. It's had time to procreate. Now, the only other problem with that is, though, when it actually comes to conservation, is that the trophy hunting mindset is not taking enough of the female species, the female of the species, off the landscape, because they're only interested in the males of that. Mm. So, because those are the trophies, right? And so they're not taking enough of the female species off in areas. Let's say Ohio, for example. Like we're begging you to shoot more does, but yet, what is most people after? A large buck, right? Let's just put it that way. Oh, but there is a negative side to that. But I think trophy hunting gets a bad rap, because a lot of people think all they do is to shoot the animal and they just leave it and go. They think of like safaris in Africa, where they're like, oh, all they're doing is just shooting the animals and leaving them. And to be honest with you, that's not the case. A lot of the times, even though the hunter themselves may not be taking the meat's actually used by the local tribes and local areas. So the meat's actually used up. And also, I'll tell you this about Africa too. If it wasn't for those hunting programs, those animals that you love wouldn't be there. They had already been poached, and they'd have been killed off, because it's the funds that hunting is bringing in. Once again, hunters are the best conservationists. It's the funds that hunters are bringing in that is keeping those animals alive, because it's funding the programs to actually, not, let's quote unquote, hunt down the poachers and prosecute them. So listen, you can hate hunters all you want, but it's not the people who hate hunting, it's not the anti-hunters who are funding anything that's saving animals. It is hunters themselves. The end. That's what it is. So I'm sorry, folks. We are a vital part of this whole entire system, whether you like it or not. I'm not asking you to participate in it. I'm just asking you to stay the hell out of the way. And let us do what we are meant to do. Let us do what needs to be done, and let the states run what they need to run with the right information, not not by ballot box, and not by some political party telling them that this is what they're going to do. Let the biologists do the job that they're meant to do. So I'm done. I'm done raining.
Yeah, no. Um, you know, at a point you just start repeating it, and it feels kind of futile sometimes, but what are you gonna do? Talk about it, get aware about it. A lot of the things we say are opinion, so keep that in mind, everyone. But when it comes to wildlife, talk to the talk to the professionals, talk to the people that are in it every day. Don't talk
Mhm.
to biased people. And we try to stay kind of in the middle. But our emotions come in, and we do have feelings. We do like animals on the landscape. I think at some point in life it'd be cool to see a wolf on the landscape. Uh, but everybody wants everything now, 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 and which is part of the reason I feel like this ballot initiative was pushed through when it was, because we are in that time of let's get them here now so I can see them before I die. Go to a state that has them if you want to see them, I guess. Uh, but I don't know. Again, there's no be all, end all, fix all. Just take some time, do research, talk to the professionals. We by no means are professionals, and keep that in mind.
No, but I hate to say it, like I'm not a professional wildlife manager, obviously, but I think with the experience that we've had in the outdoors, I think we probably have, we could probably say we're maybe an expert in some things, but just from the experiences and stuff we've been involved in, but we're not necessarily trained in all the expertise of wildlife management when it comes to a grand scale. But I think
Yeah,
if we see
and
something,
we're both still fairly new to even Western hunting. I know you've been doing it quite a bit longer than I have, but the whole wolf thing is kind of new to a lot of people on the landscape, aside from the biologists and some people who have probably worked in proximity. So just one thing for everybody to keep in mind before you get in the comment box and you start screaming at us at what idiots we are. Yeah, we're probably idiots too, but this is kind of a platform to voice our opinion, share some of the facts of situations that we are currently experiencing.
well, once again, I'm going to say, like, listen, you can get in the comment section and write all you want. Like, I really don't, at this point, I really don't care, because I've said on the other podcasts, even negative press is press. And thank you for the or thank you for the interaction. It helps. I appreciate that. So go ahead and go in there and run your mouth all you want. I really don't. I mean, I know I'm coming off brash, and I'm sorry. I don't
No,
mean to do that, but I like, and I mean, I'm saying that to the listeners too, or the people that's watching this, like, that are on our side. When I say on our side, like, I guess on the side of wildlife and on the side of conservation, like, I'm this is but go ahead, write what you need to, write what you need to say. I get it, right? I'm probably not going to read it anyways, or maybe I'll highlight it somewhere and give you and like give you an LOL. But at the end of the day, though, like, there's got to be some type of rational thought that starts to take over at a certain point. Someone has to have a rational thought and a rational idea of how this should probably have been done. And anytime that you put it up to the voters, I don't know. This is one of those topics that it shouldn't be there. And if
no.
you have something that's 51-49 when it comes to a topic like this, you probably should just leave it alone. Um, Ohio tried to pass a bill when it comes to change our constitution to where it had to be more than 51-49. Like, it had to be like what pretty close to what the actual to ratify something into the US Constitution. We had to have, I think, over 60% of the states to vote it in. We wanted to kind of be somewhat similar to that, and it failed. And then now we've had a couple of other issues that come up that pass, like 51-49, 51-49.
So I was also going to ask, did that issue fail 51-49? That'd be a little ironic.
Yeah, I honestly, I think it did.
I
And I think there's a lot of misinformation that got spread about that. But
and it
that's every topic, though. Everything there's a lot of misinformation out there, and and some people might think we're spreading misinformation, and I don't think I am, but I
no,
try to
I
be.
am. I am. I called Teddy Roosevelt a Democrat, so
There's a difference between misinformation and just making a mistake, but you corrected it. If people just listen long enough, they'll hear you corrected it. Another thing that's gone out there is that I think they call it malinformation, where it's true information, but it's harmful. What?
well, the truth does hurt.
But it causes more harm than good. So malinformation is now out there. I think I got that off the Rogan podcast. To be honest with you, my dogs are trying to dig their way in here. All right. Well, I think we rambled enough. I don't know if there's anything else you want to cover. Did you get everything out you wanted to say on the wolf topic?
Yeah, I got everything out. I'm not gonna put a whole lot of emotion into it because I do think it's not cool for the ranchers, but I do think it's cool. Wolves were making a comeback, and then we started pushing more in, which wasn't so cool. But I'm kind of conflicted because I'm kind of sitting here in the middle again, as I typically do, sitting on my fence. they're here now, like just whatever, but I don't see a need for any more. So that's kind of why I like the I-13. They're not trying to get these wolves that are here off the landscape. They're just trying to prevent uh, any more
Further
from
range.
being stressed and
Yeah.
brought in, and yeah, further reintroduction to
Yeah. And it gives a date too.
summarize.
Like, I mean, here's the problem. They're just going to give a date, and I guarantee you that somebody that's in charge, I'm not going to name who, but your governor, is probably going to push that in that say that this makes it to the ballot in November and it gets ratified. I guarantee, mark my words, I guarantee that the governor is going to make a big push that's between November and December to bring in probably double the amount of wolves that they had projected to do during
Well,
that time.
and even if it's not him, I believe, don't quote me on it, here's some more potential misinformation. But I'm pretty sure this year is the last year of his term. So come 2026, someone new, I believe, will be taking over whoever gets voted in. I believe. I cannot remember for the life of me, but I think that's where we're at right now.
Okay. Well, I mean, the term limits
Um,
exist for a reason.
They
Maybe we
do,
need more.
and a lot of people hate the governor, and I get it. But as far as COVID went, I think he handled it fairly well, leaving things up to counties and local municipalities to handle things how it went. Uh, the way things have gone lately, it seemed like a harder push on certain agenda issues, which is going to happen. But if he is on his way out, it hasn't been, I'll probably get hate for this. It hasn't been the worst, at least in my experience of being here for it. But just keep in mind, the next guy or gal might be a lot worse.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Sometimes it's better than the better the devil you know than the devil you don't. Well, I don't think I have anything else to add to the conversation. I just curious to see if first off, if you live in Colorado, please go sign a petition, get that out there. Once again, not because we hate wolves. We actually do like wolves. We like all animals. They all serve a purpose, right? But at the end of the day, though, like let it be. We have to be smart about it, and this is not a smart idea. It was never a smart idea to begin with. Um, let the wolves come in naturally. Let them spread so that And I'm not. I've already said this. I'm not even going to go down the road. But sign a petition. It gives an end date. Let's look more on how to manage, because right now I'm pretty sure Colorado Parks and Wildlife has gone from more of a reintroduction phase to just a management phase at this point, because I don't think they want to bring any more in right now because they don't know what's going on. They can't put their finger on why these wolves are dying. I don't know. I think it's
Wingets.
obvious to a lot of us, but I think most of it's just speculation, and we're just making assumptions that we probably don't really know the full facts to. And I probably shouldn't say what I'm saying, but at the end of the day, though, like, these are all things that I think anybody with a reasonable amount of forethought could have seen happen, and like Gordon Graham calls it, predictable surprises. These are like predictable surprises. Like, we didn't know this was going to happen, but yet you could have predicted that it was going to happen. But anyways,
Yeah,
uh,
again, mostly speculation. So you can get your feelers hurt. You can call us dumb. I don't care. At the end of the day, it's a podcast and we're having a conversation. Join the conversation.
yeah. And with that being said, a lot of this information is coming from news sources that's available online. Make sure you go out there and do your own research in this. And obviously, a lot of this is opinion based, and you can tell I get a little bit more heated and a little bit more emotional on things. So obviously, that's my opinion and my views of it. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's 100% right, and you have the right to disagree with me all you want. And like I said, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and that's just my opinion. When we did talk about facts, though, talk about numbers, like, it's supported through online documents and stuff where you guys can get on there and do your own research on that. But
Yeah.
make sure you give
And,
Smart Wolf policy to follow. Sorry, go ahead.
oh, no, I was just going to say, and that's one thing that we've kind of gotten away from, not just us as a yeah, well, mostly just us as a country. You used to be able to have debate and still disagree. You don't have to hate each other because you disagree. You're allowed to disagree. It's a beautiful thing about this world. You have free world to form your own opinion. Just because we don't agree doesn't mean we have to agree. We can agree to disagree, but when
I've
it
been there a few
comes.
times myself.
Yeah. So, keep in mind, it's just a podcast, and we're just here talking shit.
Pretty much is what it comes down to. Well, I think it's a good place to leave this here, and just to remind people, hey, go out there, do your own research, check into that Smart Wolf policy. Look them up on Instagram and all their socials and stuff. Get out there and sign a petition. Um, get your voices heard, even if you originally voted for it. I think there's enough of a case, or I believe there's enough of a case out there to kind of support the fact that we need to put a halt to this. And even if it's just a period just to reevaluate and come at it a smarter way, or just put a halt to it, period, and let the wolves naturally come in like they have been. I don't know, that's above my pay grade, but I do ask you guys to check that out. You can check them out, give them a follow, give them a like. They got some pretty good content they put out there. And just do the research for your own, and don't fall in for a bunch of misinformation
Yeah. Yeah.
out
You don't
there.
have to
And
believe everything we're telling you. Jump
no,
on Smart Wolf's website and read it yourself and see if it's anything you agree with. Neither of us are in any way affiliated with,
mm-mm.
the runnings and how Smart Wolf policy is run. I am a volunteer petitioner, like a canvasser, petitioner, whatever.
Well,
So I am a volunteer, but in no way are we sponsored by them, or
so if you live in
we just like what they're doing, so we're telling you about them.
if you live in Sam's area, go check him. Go see him. He's got a petition for you to sign. So need signatures to get that on the ballot, and hopefully get this you know relooked at, because it's costly. It's costing more money than they projected, which I think most projects do anyways. I don't want to be that person, but I think most projects cost more than we originally thought they were. But we've already doubled your depredation money, so, and that money's got to come from somewhere. And it's all going to fall back on the taxpayers, and how much money you want to spend on that. So all right, I got nothing else to say. Sam, what about you, brother?
No, sir. I think we've pretty well kicked the dead horse. So
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate that you took the last hour and a half to sit and join us as we discuss several of the current events and kind of just get caught up with Sam. We haven't been on the podcast together in a while. We would appreciate if you would take a moment to go ahead and like and leave us a review on the podcast, and make sure you subscribe or follow the show on the podcast platform of your choice, and share it with your friends and stuff. Leave us a comment as well, even if you don't believe in what we're saying, or even if you disagree. Hey, throw a comment out there. Like I said, it is interaction, but it is a platform for everyone to kind of share your voices and stuff out there, and we do appreciate most of your opinions. I'll put it that way. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, until our experiences cross paths again, may you have the courage to fail, but yet the humility to learn. And as always, we hope you stay safe out there, and God bless you.
Thank you for listening to the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. Before you go, don't forget to leave us a review and follow the show on the podcast platform of your choice. Are you hungry for more Country Fried Outdoors? Then follow us on Instagram at Country Fried Outdoors, or subscribe to our YouTube channel at Country Fried Outdoor Productions.